Most people, when they think of literature, they think of William Shakespeare or Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet. Well, William didn't live in Africa, although his work did eventually influence some of us to some extent, like he did with the rest of the world. In Africa, it did not start with him. African literature is defined as literary works of the African continent. African literature consists of a body of work in different languages and various genres, ranging from oral literature to literature written in colonial languages such as French, Portuguese, and English. Most people, when you talk about African literature, you're thinking about your Chinua Achebes, your Ngilgis, or your Chimamandas, but still, as written in the roots of African theater, ritual, and orality in pre-colonial period by Osman Diakate and Hansel Ayo, rather than referring to the cultural traditions of Europe then, it seems more sensible to look at the evolution of African culture from within its own unique dynamic and from within its history. So as an African myself, with all due respect, we're gonna need to take you back for a more comprehensive cut. So let me take you back in this special Africa documentary series that gives you the history of African literature. We'll be focusing on how African literature began, how it developed, the legends who made it, what influenced it, and how and why it continues to evolve to what it is today. The three-part special will be divided into pre-colonial literature, post-colonial literature, and finally post-independence literature. And bear with us here. This is just a brief summary and chronology of a history that is just too broad to be covered in this small time frame. So forgive us if we leave some things out, but we tried our best. We'll probably cover them in more comprehensive videos anyway in the future. So today our documentary will naturally start on part 1, which is pre-colonial literature. Pre-colonial literature refers to the period before the coming of the white man, and most notoriously the occurrence of the Berlin Conference of 1884, aka the Scramble for Africa, from 1881 to 1914. That was the period of colonization. This period before the coming of the white man boasted pure African literal customs, undiluted and completely free from the white man's influence. Proverbs, riddles, idioms, myths, dramas, and songs and customs that were divided from African ways were very important to society and made, I'm sure you've heard of this one, our identity. Proverbs and sayings were vital to the community education-wise. These sayings were inspired by things the people personally interacted with on a day-to-day basis, such as their livestock, hunting, the climate, nature, agriculture, the people, witchcraft, superstition, social interactions, and so much more. These proverbs would be used to pass on wise morals and ideas that children can learn from, so they can grow up to be better adults who make better decisions. Yes, long before Twitter. This trend of education was pretty common in most different African cultures. For example, Seka urema wafa is more or less the same as the Swahili proverb usitukane wakunga na uzasi ungalipo. Both these traditional sayings carry a common message of respecting others because there will always be a chance that you may need their help in the future. Ugandan scholar Pio Sirimu believes African literature is literature of and from Africa and includes oral literature and orature. Yes, it is impossible to do justice to the literature of Africa of this age without mentioning oral literature, which was usually told in prose or verse. In Algeria, oral poetry was an important part of Berber traditions when the majority of the population was illiterate. Those oral traditions are also found in many languages like Fula, Swahili, Hausa, Wolof, Shona, Ndebele, Zulu, and so much more, usually told by elders of the village and passed down to young children. This is how the children would get educated about their values, history, culture, legends, and arts. And maybe they're superheroes too.
A plant that granted him superhuman strength, speed, and instincts. The warrior became king and the first Black Panther, the protector of Wakanda.
And no, this is not to say that Black Panther is actually real. This is just an illustration, okay? It's an illustration. Art in this society was almost one and the same thing with teaching. It served a purpose as entertainment at communal and cultural gatherings as they paid homage to the ancestors. Among the main themes of these narratives included telling of inspirational stories such as of the clever trickster Tsuro in Tsuro Nagudo, i.e. the hare and the baboon, the pit or the fulcrum of these stories was of the smaller animal outwitting a much larger one by wit, calculation, and quick thinking. Again, this format was followed by many cultures such as in Western Sudan and in Southern Africa. Such stories are told about the hare, the spider. Anansi is the mischievous, greedy hero of trickster tales in Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. In Nigeria and Cameroon, the tortoise is the cleverest animal, sometimes as in Benin. Call and response was a technique used to make people actively involved by giving them an opportunity to vocally complete certain sections of the narration. These techniques would later go on to influence many future arts such as Black solidarity protests in apartheid.
That day is not far when it shall lead you to freedom.
Or political pro-independent chants in Zimbabwe. Black contemporary music genres such as samba in Brazil, R&B in USA, and even rumba in Congo exhibit influences of this narration technique. This is because it establishes a deeper, more potent connection with the crowd the leaders are addressing. It is also written by Diakate and Eyo that it is functioning of society itself which most directly dictates artistic expression in Africa, whose theatre is rooted in myths, rites, and folktale celebrations which externalize the beliefs, passions, and concepts that preoccupy a certain group. Africa did not name their theatre, rather they lived it. Poetry usually sung included the narrative epic, occupational verse, ritual verse, praise poems for rulers and other leaders of the community.
In my culture, the purpose of song is to give life and hope to the people, to heal the broken hearts. And you don't get to sing a song when you have nothing to say.
Praise singers, sometimes called griots, just kidding, they're called griots or griots, narrated their stories through their music. The theme of these songs were love, work, children, along with other stories that would praise a mythical hero or ancestral figure that would have conquered adversity. As written by Osman Diakate and Hansel Eyo, ritual dances are also creators of beauty insofar as they also sterilize their bodies and movements. In most African cultures, it is impossible to separate spoken word, poetry, dance, drama, and music as they complement each other in telling a compelling and authentic visual story. Indeed, dance could also be a literature because it told a story. For example, Zimbabwe's Dine tells the story of harvest. Looks familiar? Music was used to pass on literature as well as welcoming heroes home and reciting events of war. South African Zulu's ritual war dance, Indlamu, tell stories of war that would give the villagers an idea of what happens on the battlefront. Stories such as the Epic of Sundiata, which was the national epic of Malinke people of Mali. It honors the founder of the Mali Empire who was unable to walk until he was 7 years old, but grew up to be a remarkable hunter, warrior, and even magician. Also written the Epic of Dinga from Ghana, the Book of Kings in Ethiopia, and Utendi wa Tambuka were classic literal stories that were popular in the community, respectively. Recorded African writings were of the interesting narrative of the life and adventures of Olaudo Equiano or Gustavus Vassa, the Africa, 1789, which described vividly the horrors of slavery. This would set the pace of written literature in Africa that is to come over a century later. So, that concludes our first part of this special trilogy. Next up, post-colonial literature. So watch out for that. Until next time, guys. Thanks for watching. Mimsy Africa.